Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we are going to be unboxing my Black Friday haul. You may remember a couple of weeks ago I did another installment of my window shopping series where I also talked about some brands that I am going to be shopping from for Black Friday. Obviously they are mostly nail polishes, but I did pick up a couple of sugar scrubs from KBShimmer and I have swatches of everything that I'll be sharing in this video. Last year when I did this, I had a much bigger haul and a lot of different brands and polishes, so I kind of had to split them up. But this year, because my Black Friday haul was much smaller, I'm gonna have everything all in this video. So stay tuned if you want to hear more of my first impressions on these shades, but I will save more of my thoughts for the end after some comparisons as well. For now, let's just get into the swatches. So starting with my Night Owl Lacquer haul, I picked up 4 polishes. This first one is called Winter Wonderland, and it is this super cute white crelly base that's packed with a blue shimmer as well as this metallic blue microflake. I think it just looks so fresh and minty, just so fun for winter. As you can see, the formula on this was pretty nice. It's very decently pigmented for being a white crelly. I didn't exactly struggle with the formula. It's more so the Night Owl brushes that I'm not the biggest fan of, but I did my best and I feel like I got pretty decent coverage on 2 coats. There's a little hint of nail line, but not enough to warrant a third for me. And the rest of my haul consisted of creams. The first one is called Snow Day, which is their December cream of the month for this year, and it is this beautiful minty green cream. This was my first time trying Night Owl Lacquer's cream polishes. I was really tempted because they're only $8 for, I think, 15 milliliter bottles, and overall I am pretty impressed. I mean, as you saw from the first swipe alone, it is super pigmented and creamy. Again, I sort of struggled mainly with the brush where I feel like I just didn't grab enough polish the first time, so I had to sort of dip back in. But again, I definitely was impressed with how this looked on 2 coats. It just was super full coverage, very even. I imagine this is going to work so well for nail art too. The next cream I have is Mischief, which came out in October of either last year or the year before, and it is this super dark and inky teal or peacock blue cream. I absolutely loved this shade, and again, I sort of struggled with the application a little bit where I just maybe didn't grab enough, but even with dipping back in, I found that this self-leveled beautifully and it was opaque in 1 coat for me. And the last cream that I picked up is called Brewing Up a Storm, which I think was a September cream of the month from maybe 2021. So I'm really happy that it's still around because this is a beautiful dusty denim kind of blue, or one of those grayed slate navies. I just love colors like this. I thought it was so beautiful and so flattering. The formula was pretty similar to the other shades where you saw me sort of dip back in, but even with that, I had really great and even coverage on the first coat. I would say that it was just a little bit more on the crelly side compared to the last shade. That was a very creamy and pigmented opaque shade, but I still would call this a solid 2-coater, especially because it's on the darker side. Moving on to my Holo Taco haul, I picked up a couple of linear holos that I had been lusting over. The first one here is Lost in the Woods, which is this beautiful dark forest green kind of linear holo, and I was just so blown away by this one. It was incredibly pigmented on the first coat alone, to the point that I would honestly call this a 1-coater for me. I am so obsessed and so happy I finally have this. The next linear that I picked up is Mint Mojito, which is this pastel mint green linear holo, and I absolutely adored this one. I found the formula was super smooth and easy to apply, just a little bit thinner or maybe just more sheer. So I wouldn't call this a 1-coater. Definitely would recommend a 2nd coat, but I don't think you would need more than that, maybe unless your nails are like a lot longer. But I am just so obsessed with how beautiful this mint shade is. I think the holo is especially strong in this one too. And the last linear holo that I picked up is Peach Tea, which was from the same pastel rainbow linear holo collection as Mint Mojito. This was another one that I had just been lusting over for like a while because I'm just a big fan of peach flavored anything, so I really love peach tea. But color wise, I was always on the fence about this one just because I wasn't sure how I would like it on me. But now that I have it, I'm definitely glad that I picked it up because it is just so beautiful and warm. Definitely like a pastel orange, not as warm as like a typical peach, I would say, but I still really love this. Lastly, I picked up two other shades. The first one is Existential Crisis, which was originally one of Christine's birthday polishes. I just don't remember what year exactly, but it is this blackened teal kind of base with this vibrant red pinkish shimmer, micro holographic glitter, and I believe iridescent flakies as well. It is just so packed with sparkle. I remember regretting missing out on this when it originally came out, and I was hoping that they would bring it back, but once they brought it back, I was so on the fence about getting it because I had seen like so many mixed reviews on the shade and had even seen swatches where it didn't look super flattering, which unfortunately I feel like happens a lot with Holo Taco birthday releases. I'm not sure if they had batch issues with this one too, but I'm really happy to say that I loved how this looked on me. And lastly, from Holo Taco, I picked up Lunar Unicorn Skin, which is this beautiful iridescent flaky topper that has a primarily yellowy gold color shift head on, but it also shifts to pink and purple and blue. I love how this looks over a bare nail alone, but I especially love it layered over white because that's where you see the blue and purple sort of shift. But there are still some flakies that catch the light and give off a golden glow. But if you do want more of that golden glow, it's really going to pop over darker colors, especially like black. And of course, I am going to be showing this swatched over the linear holos and just the rest of my haul. I'm not usually one for doing iridescent flakies over a linear holo, but I did like how it looked over Lost in the Woods the most, probably because they just had more contrast. I almost felt that way about Existential Crisis, but I thought it was a little too busy for me. Next, I picked up two shades from Cracked Polish because I just had to get their Jelly of the Month for November. It's called Cordially Invited, and it is this beautiful black cherry kind of color. I was so excited for the shade after seeing Caitlin swatch it because it just looks so gorgeous, but unfortunately, I didn't have the best application experience with this one. The first coat is always hard to judge with jellies because they can often look a little streaky and not super flattering, but the second coat is where I struggled a bit here. I just didn't find this one self-leveled really nicely on me, and then that led to me overworking the polish and just causing it to be even more uneven and streaky. I don't know if I was just having a weird painting day where I just wasn't grabbing enough polish on my brushes during the swatch sesh, but it didn't look that great on the second coat, but doing a thicker third coat I think evened it out a little bit better. And the other shade that I grabbed is Berried Juniper, which is a brand new green cream that she released that I think was a part of a trio. I was most called to this shade because it just looks so beautiful, where it's kind of like this mid-tone green, but still very dusty. And as you just saw, this one had a flawless, impeccable formula that was so pigmented and creamy, very even coverage, but not thick at all. So I feel like it could be a one coater depending on your application. But either way, it's like two easy coats. But flawless formula aside, I actually didn't end up loving this one on me. I feel like it just looked a little too dark, but I still think the color is gorgeous. And finally, we have my ILNP haul, which of course, the very first polish on my wish list was Eclipse. This one came out in, I want to say like 2017 or something. It was like the first black to red multi-chrome polish that took the world by storm. But this was back then when I didn't care for multi-chromes, so I just never cared for this polish. But over the years, I have really grown to love this finish, and I feel like I finally am at the place in my life where I need Eclipse in my collection. It is super gorgeous. It was a little bit sheer or thin on the first coat, but perfectly opaque in two. I love this kind of gray gunmetal shimmer that you see head on, but of course the star of the show is how that shimmer shifts to red in extreme lighting. It is so strong. The next shade I picked up was Ava, and this is a beautiful dark purple base with a bright red shimmer that shifts to green in extreme angles, and it also has this holographic micro flaky. I mainly picked this up to see if it was going to be a dupe to Coronation, so if you want to see that, just stay tuned. But I also just really loved this kind of formula and finish and color combination, like red shimmers in a purple base. You just can't go wrong with it, and this one was super gorgeous. Looking back though, I wish I had done a third coat, not that it was needed for coverage, but just to kind of deepen the color a little bit more. It was also a shame that I wasn't able to get that green shift on camera because I could see it in real life. This next shade is Salem, which is this beautiful blackened base that has this emerald green micro shimmer that shifts to purple in extreme lighting. If it wasn't obvious by the name or color combination, this was a previous Halloween release, and I know I've mentioned it before that I try not to fall for like the gimmicky, festive, holiday type of polishes because my collection is already so massive and it's hard to like cycle through everything, but ILNP does Halloween so well, and I feel like I just needed this shade. I love how dark and moody it looks with the green shimmer against that black base, but obviously the star is how it shifts to purple in extreme lighting. It just makes it so witchy. I unfortunately couldn't capture it under my recording setup, so I had to just take a photo. And yes, I did pick up another Halloween shade. This is Annabelle, and this is a super dark blackened purple in that hollow, flaky, jelly kind of formula that I'm sure you know is my favorite. You might remember from my initial wishlist video for Black Friday that I was kind of on the fence about this one because it originally was on my wishlist, but then I took it off because I was so scared it was just going to be basically black. But so many of you guys were like, no, you need to get it. It is gorgeous. You can still tell that it's purple, but it is really, really dark, which I'm sure you can tell here. It basically looks black on camera, but in real life, you can tell it's dark purple, and it is gorgeous. Speaking of black, I did pick up ILNP's Cityscape, which is the black, hollow, jelly flaky polish that I was missing in my collection. I think this one is so gorgeous. It wasn't super even on the first coat. I had a couple of light spots, but it was very pigmented, so it was perfectly opaque in just 2 coats. And I found that this one was like super packed with those little hollow flakies, which I obviously love so much, but I just found it really impressive considering this is like a pigmented black jelly, but it just like doesn't cover up any of those flakies at all. It is so sparkly and rainbowy. Next I have High Roller, which was from their one Black Friday release, I think last year, that consisted of these black-based polishes that had a multi-chrome magnetic pigment as well as a dainty hollow sparkle outside of that. I originally had a couple of the polishes from that collection on my wish list, but I would say that High Roller was my top favorite, so I wanted to pick this one up first because I love the purple to pink color shift in the multi-chrome pigment. It is just super gorgeous, and no surprise, this one had a flawless formula, as do so many of ILNP's magnetics, and especially because it has a black base, it was perfectly opaque for me in just 2 coats. I feel like in extreme angles, the shimmer even shifted to like this orange color. So while I didn't pick this up for Black Friday, ILNP was kind enough to send me their Horseshoe magnet, so I of course had to compare it to the one that I was using before, and I was under the impression the red one was a 30-pound one, but as you can see, there is a size difference here, so maybe that was like a 22-pound pull because it is a little bit smaller, but it still worked just as well, I would say. And as far as like removing the little magnet kind of cover, the red one was a lot easier to slide off. I'm apparently just too weak to pull it off directly, but the ILNP one was so much harder. I mean, I guess I have like weak hands to begin with. I struggle with opening jars sometimes, so I found the easiest way was to slide it as as much as possible, then push it up so it's standing on like the skinniest edge because I find it so much easier to pull off that way, but I did kind of struggle as you saw. So I'd love to know if anybody else struggles this much or I just need to go back to the gym. But anyway, the ILNP magnet is great. It's very roomy. I find that it's also a lot deeper. I don't know if you can really tell, but obviously it's still easy enough to fit your finger in and paint as usual, and it just gives you the most plush velvet effect. As of recording, I don't think ILNP has been able to list their magnets for sale just yet, so make sure you're following them so you don't miss when that happens. The next shade that I grabbed is Dash of Cocoa, and I have to thank Linry for this recommendation because I've seen her talk about this shade a couple of times on her channel, and it always looks like this super dark and luscious chocolate brown with this reddish shimmer, and it just always looks so stunning. As you know, I'm definitely a huge fan of brown nail polish, especially when they're so deep and decadent, and I found that this one was really pretty. I was just a little nervous at first because I feel like it just looked so much more red on the first coat than I was anticipating, but the second coat definitely deepens up the color a lot. It just has, again, a very strong like reddish undertone, but I really love that. I think it just warms it up so beautifully. The shimmer also has the shift to gold, so it just looks like a fireplace. And lastly from ILNP, I picked up Princeton, which originally came out in 2014. This is probably one of ILNP's oldest polishes that they still have available on their website, and it is this really beautifully soft jade kind of green crelly base with this, I think, linear holo. It's kind of hard to tell because it's not a super strong rainbow flare, but you still see it. I know subtle holos aren't for everybody, but I really love this one. I think it just pairs so beautifully with this like soothing green base. It had a lovely formula that was opaque in 2 coats. So pretty. And then moving on to KBShimmer, I have my 3 sugar scrubs that I grabbed, which were the same 3 that I had on my initial like Black Friday wish list. At the very top of my list was the Rainbow Shaved Ice scent. I had picked this up originally over the summer and immediately fell in love. First of all, the packaging is just so perfect because it looks like rainbow shaved ice, which I'm a fan of. More importantly, the scent is just so delectable. I just am such a fan of any kind of like fruity scent. I feel like this is sweet, but without being like too sugary, and definitely not that like artificial sweet, or at least not to me. This was also one of their original like PPU scents from I think 2022. So I can't imagine it's gonna stay around for much longer on their website. So if you are going to be ordering from KBShimmer anytime soon and you're looking for a sugar scrub to try, I highly would recommend checking this one out, especially if you're a fan of those like fruity, sugary kind of scents. I really debated getting 2 of these because when I opened it and used it for the first time, I just knew that I loved it that much, but I figured I would just try some other scents first, and then, you know, if it's still in stock by the time I like get through this, I can get another one. But yeah, I just cannot recommend this one enough. It is so good. The next one I want to talk about is their Berry Sweet scent, which is one of their newest one that launched alongside their winter collection this year. I don't know if you could tell, but I am currently using it and it is delicious. It just smells like sugar covered berries. So sweet, but so yummy, not like too overpowering. I'm pretty sure like the label, this has strawberries, raspberries, and blueberries, maybe blackberries too, but I definitely get those like strawberry and raspberry scents where it's like sweet with like a little bit of tart. I'm not sure how close or similar in scent this is to the Rainbow Shaved Ice because it's like, you know, sweet and fruity, but I will say that I would get a backup of this one, especially if the Rainbow Shaved Ice is like sold out. This is another one that's like super good, definitely a great alternative. It is so yummy. I literally just can't stop smelling it. And the last one that I grabbed, no surprise, is another sweet fruity one. This is Watermelon Sugar, and I believe this also was a PPU scrub from like 2021. So this is another one that I would say is probably not going to be on the website for much longer. You can check on KBShimmer's website. They have like a PPU tab, and that's where they have all of their scents that they brought back from their sugar scrubs. Obviously, I would consider this like a summer kind of scent along with the rainbow shaved ice, but I would love to save this more for like the warmer months. So I don't want to open the lid just to do like a sniff test right now, because I'm kind of nervous that the scent is gonna like go away in a couple of months. So I'm not gonna open it just yet, but I hope that it's gonna smell just as good as it sounds. But I'm looking forward to it. Any like watermelon scented cuticle oil that I've tried before, I have loved. So I know that I'm just like a fan of that smell. So fingers crossed that this will actually be delicious once I try it. Now moving on to comparisons, we're starting with Night Owl Lacquer Snow Day and looking at it next to Sinful Colors aPEAsing, which is one of my favorite mint greens. I just don't know how readily available the Sinful Colors shade is because I just haven't seen them in stores, and this color specifically is a little bit older, and while it's not an exact dupe, it definitely is really close. I also had to show this next to Cracked Polish's Color Correction, which was their pastel mint green from the makeup collection. They look like they could be dupes in the bottle, but seeing them on the nail, there definitely is a difference where Cracked is a little bit more of a whitened mint color. Next for Mischief, I wanted to quickly show this next to Cirque's Verdigris jelly, because even though that one is a super sheer jelly, I feel like they're in the same color family. I didn't have anything quite like Mischief in my collection. I thought Borealis from ILNP Ava was going to be similar, but that's too light. Then for Brewing Up a Storm, I was immediately reminded of Essie's Carols and Caviar from a holiday collection a couple of years ago, but as you can probably tell, that one is a little too gray. So then I was also reminded of Zoya's Brett, which is another kind of dusty blue gray, but that one is a little too blue and not enough gray. So seeing them side by side on the nail, they are definitely not dupes, but definitely really close to each other. Now moving on to Holo Taco, we're looking at Lost in the Woods next to Ivy League from the Dark Academia collection. That's more of a blackened base with a green shimmer. There's no holo. The closest that I have to a dark green linear holo is Mooncat's Monster Under Your Head, but that one is more of this yellowy olive sort of color, so I definitely would not call it a dupe by any means. And even if you were to layer a linear holo topper over Ivy League, the shade of green is just a little bit different, so I still wouldn't call those dupes either. Next for Mint Mojito, I of course have to show this next to Full Charge, which was retired last year. That one is a bright lime green, so not a dupe. If anything, the closer shade is the other one that I got in my Black Friday haul. This is ILNP's Princeton. That one is minty and kind of has a linear holo, but it is so much more subtle compared to the holo flare in Holo Taco. Definitely wouldn't call them dupes, and I personally love both of them. And then for Peach Tea, I knew I had to see this next to Mooncat's Fake Halo, which they describe as a rose gold linear holo, but I would call it like a warm champagne kind of gold. They look really similar, especially in the bottle, and I guess a little bit on the nail. I personally can tell a difference where Mooncat's is a little bit more neutral, less orangey, so I wouldn't call them dupes, but I could see people not needing both. And lastly, for Lunar Unicorn Skin, I wanted to quickly show this next to ILNP's Spotlight, which is their iridescent flaky topper from the recent opening night collection, but that one's more silvery white. So I also wanted to show this next to Holo Taco's Solar Unicorn Skin, but that one has more of a reddish kind of flaky color head on. And lastly, here it is next to Cirque's Fantasia, which is their iridescent rainbow flaky topper, but that one has an even more colorful mix, so you see flashes of basically every kind of color, while Lunar again has the more yellowy gold head on and Solar has more of that reddish orange. Next, for Cordially Invited, I knew I had to see this next to Cirque's Bonbon Jelly from their recent Curio winter collection. It might look similar, but it is darker or more brown. So then I thought maybe this is actually closer to Mexican Cola Jelly from the Jarritos collection over the summer. They definitely do look more similar in the bottle, but seeing them on the nail, there is a slight difference. I'm showing them in 1 and 2 coats so you can just better see the undertones of the color. Again, I would say that Bonbon is more brown, while Mexican Cola is a little bit more red. Cordially Invited almost looks like the in-between of these two, so I thought maybe if I layered Mexican Cola over Bonbon, I could recreate it. So I did 2 coats of Bonbon with 1 coat of Mexican Cola on top, but it was a little too dark. So as a last-ditch effort, I tried doing 2 coats of Mexican Cola over 1 coat of Bonbon, and this was closer in tone or value, but the color is a little off, where Cordially Invited is a little bit more berry. Next, for Berried Juniper, I thought that I maybe had a Nailpollies dupe for this. The first one that I pulled out was I've Been Thinking About You, which was the green bean shade from last year's Thanksgiving release. And I also thought of You're My Fav-urrito, which looks really similar in the bottle here, but it definitely is lighter and more yellow leaning. So I would say in the bottle, it looked more similar to the previous shade, but on the nail, they definitely look so different, where Cracked is just a lot deeper and more muted. Moving on to ILNP, we're starting with Eclipse, and I wanted to quickly show this next to Mooncat's Gates of Hell, which is one of my favorite shades. They describe it as a black to red, but it's more eggplanty. The only true black to red kind of multi-chrome shade that I have is Starly's Black Widow, but it has this golden kind of flaky. And the only other similar ILNP shade that I have is Orbit from their Cosmos collection a couple of years ago. But that one is a bit lighter, more of like a gunmetal-y kind of color with a little bit of a blue shimmer. It does still shift to red, but it's not nearly as strong as Eclipse or Starly. I'm pretty sure Starly's Venom would be an exact dupe because it's basically Black Widow without the gold shimmer, but I already destashed that one. Next up for Ava, I of course have to show this next to ILNP's Hallucinate, which is another purple base with this red multi-chrome shimmer. It just doesn't have any holo in it, and obviously we are finally looking at Ava next to Cirque's Coronation, which on paper they basically have the same kind of description. The main difference is that Coronation includes Unicorn Pea and the ILNP shades do not, but they still have this red shimmer that shifts to green in extreme angles. So like I thought, Ava is definitely really similar to Coronation. I'm showing 2 coats of each, and Ava is just a little bit lighter. And while I'm struggling to show it off here, they basically have the same color shifting shimmer, so Ava's a really good alternative. Then for Salem, I was immediately reminded of Holo Taco's Ivy League from their Dark Academia collection, though I feel like the color of their green shimmer is a little bit more yellow leaning. And of course, I also have to show this next to Mooncat's Access Denied, which is their black base with a green shimmer. In the bottle, they definitely look like they were going to be dupes, but there is a difference on the nail where, surprisingly, I feel like Salem looks closer to Ivy League than it does to Mooncat. The green shimmer in Access Denied just doesn't really stand out as strongly as the other two, but Salem is the only one with a purple shift. Then for Annabelle, I had to show this next to Cityscape to really show you the difference between a really dark purple and a true black polish. The only other dark purple hollow flaky jelly that I have is Vanity, but as you can see, that one's a bit lighter. So Annabelle is definitely a few shades deeper, but I feel like it has the least amount of hollow, which is kind of interesting. Next for High Roller, I really wanted to see this next to Holo Taco's Queen's Curse, which was retired just earlier this year. That was their super dark purple magnetic, and it does have a purple base compared to the black base in ILNP, so I knew they weren't going to be exact dupes, but I feel like the magnetic shimmer is kind of similar, where it sort of goes from purple to pink, and they also both have this like extra hollow flaky outside of the magnetic shimmer, so they're kind of similar but not dupes. Then for Dash of Cocoa, I wanted to quickly show this next to Holo Taco's Inkwell from the Dark Academia collection. That one is a super dark blackened brown, but with this golden kind of shimmer. So for a warmer brown, I thought I could show this next to Crack's Leatherbound, but as you can see, that one's a little too light and orangey and also more of a metallic kind of finish. I thought I had something closer from ILNP, so the first one that I pulled out was Bear Hug from the Home for the Holidays collection last winter. It is a different finish, but even still, the shade of brown is a lot more neutral, way less red. And then I remembered Shapeshifter from the Halloween collection, which is one of my favorite browns, and I just didn't realize like how red brown this was, because it definitely is more similar than Bear Hug was, but they're not dupes because they're totally different finishes. So that wraps up my Black Friday haul. As always, I would love to know your thoughts on what I picked up, especially if you have any of these shades or sugar scrubs in your collection. I feel like so many of you definitely do, because you were excited when I was talking about what was on my wish list, because a lot of these are kind of like fan favorites that I just happen to not have in my collection for one reason or another. And I'm really happy to have a lot of them now. I just think they're super beautiful. And I also just love how like satisfying each of my hauls look. But yeah, I would love to know what you picked up for Black Friday and what your first impressions were. I've seen a lot of people sharing their hauls on like Reddit and sharing swatches so far. Some people like wearing full hand manicures already, which, you know, I'm definitely not going to be doing, but at least for first impressions, it was fun to swatch them all for now. But make sure you let me know any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.